Hi everyone. So we have started with the System Design 101 series, and these are the topics we have already covered. Today we are going to talk about message queues, asynchronous communication, and PubSub in detail. So let's begin.
Okay, so now let's begin. So before even understanding what is a message queue, pops up, and all of that, let us first understand in very layman terms like what is a queue. When is the last time you have worked with a queue? The first hands-on we have with queue is when we study data structures, right? That there's a FIFO queue, there's a queue. We learn about the NQ and the DQ operations and a bunch of different coding problems that we do with the queue. System designs queue is more about the implementation of what we learned while we were studying data structure of what a queue is. So technically, in our normal day-to-day life, where do we see queue around us? Like any kind of a line, right? A line of things where so it is just a line of things which is waiting to be processed in some sequential manner. So when you're standing in a queue, right? When you're standing in any kind of line, so there are a bunch of things which are getting processed one by one. That is what a queue means. So why do we need to care about learning this mechanism? Why is it important? So let's try to discuss about that. So I've started with a very simple example. When we have an online platform to book tickets, so when we try to do that, what are the sequence of events that happens? So these are the four things that happens. You select your seats and you make the payment. Great. And you think your movie ticket is booked. But then read these. But then you have to understand that behind the scenes, there are certain things which happen. Like first, the seat reservation in the database, you have to make an entry. Then we have to send a confirmation email. We get on WhatsApp, SMS, whatever. Then also, wherever your venue is, they also need to block it in their system that there is a seat booking in their venue. And if it is a popular event, we also have to update the availability. Like on the app, you will see, right, how many number of seats have been blocked. So all the things happen behind the scenes. Now the user cannot really wait for this. He will book the ticket. He will book the ticket, make the payment, and just understand that my ticket is confirmed. I do not have to wait. So if these things were handled immediately after payment, if these four things are to be done after payment, then the user will be kept on waiting. Latency will increase. So instead of that, we just get an SMS that this is the booking is successful, check your email, whatever. But behind the scenes, these things happen. So how do you think these things happen? See another example. When you are placing orders on your Amazon or Flipkart, right? You place an order, you make the payment, you are done. But behind the scenes, all of these things have to happen. Again, you cannot really be kept waiting for that. You paid the payment means your order is confirmed. The next when you check is you see the order status, whether it is, dispatch, shipped, delivered, all of that. But behind the scenes, what is happening, we do not really care about it. As an end user, we do not really care. Now, when we're doing system design, now we have to actually start caring about this so that the now where is the queue actually coming into picture. Now whenever you're placing this order, right, all the order details that you are having, like how many items are purchased, your address, your payment, all of this gets queued up. Technically it gets queued up in some data structure. I'm not going into the data structure part of it. Modern frameworks have their own internal complex data structure, so they're getting queued up. So this is your order, this is your friend's order, this is your neighbor's order, like that. And one by one, it gets processed by the downstream applications or services. And then, as a result of this, there is no waiting period for the end user. So, what actually is happening? This brings us to the next concept of asynchronous communication. You may have heard, in short, we say async. So, these things are happening asynchronously behind the scenes. So, what is the asynchronous communication? So, when I was doing the Java concurrency threads playlist, also I have talked about it. What is asynchronous processing? So there are two parties, and then these two parties are not really waiting for each other to respond or acknowledge. So you did a phone call to your friend. You did a phone call because you're expecting your friend to respond to you, to talk to you. But when you send an email or when you're sending a WhatsApp or any DM or text, are you expecting the other person to respond to you instantaneously? This is not instant chat. So then email, WhatsApp are the asynchronous communication. But a phone call, a video call is the synchronous communication. Similarly, in this case, I've already explained also in Java Threads concurrency playlist that whenever you want the task to be executed independent of the main execution, independent of the main thread, you do not want the main thread to be blocked, then what you are doing is the asynchronous processing. So you are not waiting for the task to complete. You are not blocking the main thread. So like in the simple example of this movie ticket booking, the main thread is what is rendering the UI. You're touching the screen, you're doing the seat selection. That is what your main thread is doing. But the moment you block it, you will see that buffering or the processing thing, because your main thread is blocked, because the main thread is now expecting the other behind the scenes activities to be completed, and that is a bad user experience. You shouldn't be doing that. And that is the reason why asynchronous processing is very important, and this is the very basis of how message queues are working. So now what we will do in case of the ticket booking, all the things that we have to do, the post processing work, we'll put it on this queue. One task, your friend's task, your neighbor's task, like that. So all the tasks are getting queued up and one by one getting handled by the downstream APIs or the services. Simple. So that is how it works. You submit the task and the task getting executed independent of the main flow. Once it is done, you'll get a callback or notification that it is done, right? So also in net banking applications, you might see, right, when you try to download the account statement for 6 months, let's say, they'll say that it will be available in your inbox after 30 minutes. So are they keeping the end user waiting till they download it from the database and do the processing of generating an Excel file and all of that? No. They would not want to do that because they don't want to make the app unresponsive. You might have seen, like, very, very long back when internet was very new, 2001, 2002 time, when net banking also was very new. Some simple activities also used to cause a lot of latency and buffering. Why? Because they were blocking the main thread. They were handling the things, they were doing legit work, they were doing some query from the DB, for example, but they were blocking the main thread. And I have also seen this, and I've seen this gradually evolve and improve, right? So that is the point, that asynchronous processing is the very foundation of why the queue is very essential nowadays in case of distributed systems. So why do we need it? Performance, user experience, and resource utilization. Very important. Like, your performance will improve if your customer user experience is improving, automatically the app's performance is getting improved. Your system resources, now the main thread, you can, okay, you've done the movie ticket booking, but apart from that, you may want to also check out other events which happening in the city. You may want to do some other booking, or maybe you want to check live events or check out workshops. So basically, I want to utilize my main thread in the most efficient manner possible, thus improving user experience, thus improving the performance of the application. Next is, what are the example? So next is the example use cases. So already discussed, your web request and response in today's times needs to be handled. You have to take a call when you want to make it async, like you're generating reports or sending email or SMS text on your user phone, then those also should be happening in the async manner. Interacting with external APIs is so very important, right? If your outcome, the response which you want to show to your end user is dependent on some processing which you are doing with the external API, right? You're calling some other API to get the information. And that if you do it on the fly, you may not be having really quick response unless the external API is designed that way. So in that case, also in our fintech, right? I work in fintech. So many a times there are many APIs which are not very stable. So we cannot really risk it. So we have to take it offline. Like, we take the processing async in the background, so that when the API handling, like, we get the response, we do retries, we do exponential retry mechanisms, and then when we get the response actually, then we do the processing. Otherwise, we will be ending up disrupting the user experience, right? So these are some of the things which you have to keep in mind when to use an async, thus when to use message queues. Like in my case, I use a lot of @async in Spring Boot framework to handle these kind of requirements, right? So now coming to message queues. We learned about queues. We know about queues, the underlying infra. I mean, the underlying mechanism is about asynchronous processing. Now, what is message queue? So if a queue contains messages which needs to be delivered from one end to another, like any kind of service to some service communication which we have to do, we are calling it a message queue because it is used to send and receive message. What is a message? Some details, some payload. It can be some event. All of these are different messages, any occurring, any happening. All of this is a message, and that is what we want to transfer. So queue is like a buffer, right? So you put up these details, this payload, this event, these details on this buffer. And then we are facilitating the service to service communication. We call it S2S call. We are facilitating the service to service call so that one message somebody has put up and then another service is reading that message or retrieving that message and doing some business logic. So this is the message to message communication, which is important in large scale distributed systems to handle all of this requests. Think about your Amazon shopping app and just think about it and you will understand that what am I talking about. So to send and receive messages between different parts of the system asynchronously. So these are the keywords which you have to understand. Asynchronously, it has to handle different parts of the system. That is why S2S, and they're sending and receiving the messages. It acts as an intermediary storage. Like I said, it acts as a buffer, right? So it acts as a buffer for the messages which is sent by producer and consumed by consumer. So remember, these are plural. So far, we thought it is just one friend, another friend talking. No, now we have to come into plural. So there can be multiple producers, there can be multiple consumers. To keep things simple, let's start with like there's one producer, one consumer. We have read about it also, the producer-consumer problem. But in real world, there are multiple producers and consumers. So how does it work? Very simple. These components or services will create some message. So my Amazon shopping or the transaction created a payload of the order details and I send it to my message queue. Now my message queue is holding the messages. My queue will have a retention period of, let's say in AWS SQS, it has 14 days. Till 14 days, it will hold the payload until they're processed by the consumers. And that is the reason why it is also increasing the reliability, right? You're not losing your messages. So until it is processed by the consumer, it will hold it. And the consumers are what? So there is one service which sent the message, another service is reading it. So that is why we are saying it is a service to service call. And then they'll retrieve it and process the messages from the queue. So this is how it works. So now in the context of message queue, there is one more term which is very popular and little confusing, message broker. So when what is a message broker? It is an intermediary component which facilitates the exchange of message. It will facilitate and not do the actual exchange between producers and the consumer, central hub, mediator, responsible, all of that. Okay. So now what is the misconception between broker and the queue, message broker and the message queue? So you can think of message queue as the actual data structure where the messages are getting stored, getting processed, S2S communication is happening, all of that. So with an example, let's try to understand. You have a restaurant. So whenever there's a food delivery service, your customer places the order, the details are placed in the message queue, the actual data structure. And the consumer is the kitchen, which will pick up one order from the queue, prepare the food, and then move to the next order. Very simple, basic, classic example. Whenever there is a delay, so new orders keep on adding to your queue, but your kitchen, based on the number of chefs you have in the kitchen, they will process it accordingly. Now, they will process accordingly in the order it was received. But there should be some supervisor or a manager in between, and that is what your message broker is doing, because it is managing the flow of the message and offering some advanced features, routing, filtering, transforming messages in the distributed system world. But again, if I go to the food delivery example, when the order is placed, what is the message broker doing? These are the things which is doing. So you can just think of it like it is a manager. Some manager should be there in front of the kitchen. The chefs will not come and directly pick the order, right? Somebody has to send the order details to the kitchen queue, send the payment information. Now, of course, payment information, no manager sends it. But for example, that restaurant has this thing of maintaining a journal or keeping an entry of the invoices or the orders which is getting processed manually if they want. Then the delivery team, although it gets notified online on the fly from the app, but let's say there is a dedicated delivery team for that, or maybe managing multiple delivery persons also, right? How many orders have come in, which delivery person will pick which order, handling the receipt and handling the food accordingly. So all of this thing is done by some human where a manual intervention is needed in this restaurant example. But in the distributed world example, you can think that message broker, like a very popular example is Kafka. So this is being done by Kafka is the manager. Kafka is not the data structure itself. Just try to understand this. Kafka is the manager which does all of this advanced feature, acts as the intermediary, basically distribute the messages based on, it's a completely different thing. Like I cannot really go into that much detail, but I'm just trying to give you a roadmap, a map, just trying to give you an idea, a picture of what it is. What is the difference between message queue and a message broker? Coming to the benefits of message queue, so we have understood that asynchronous processing, latency is reduced, user experience is improved, but there are some more terms which you have to understand, like decoupling is a very popular term. Whenever decoupling is mentioned, you have to understand, okay, message queues is being talked about. Because your producer and consumer decoupled. What is decoupling? We have this concept of coupling and cohesion, right? So what is coupling? So more interdependency there is between the components. So we always want to have low coupling. There should be low interdependency. And cohesion is another term where not between different services, but between the service itself, like intra dependency, which is there. The cohesion should be high. Okay. But low coupling or decoupling, when we want to talk about, we just want to say this, like your kitchen queue and your customers, they should be decoupled from each other. So it is scalability, right? So multiple consumers can, so you can keep on adding number of chefs to your restaurant and just scale your restaurant whenever you're having a lot of orders, right? So that is one thing you can do. So in that way, you're improving the throughput because you are processing messages in parallel, right? Or processing the food orders in parallel. Reliability, I've already talked about it. It makes the system more reliable. I mentioned this point above also because there's a retention period of 14 days. So they're not lost. Your details in the queue, your messages in the queue are not lost, even if the consumer is temporarily available. And load balancing. So again, if you have more consumers, right? So the messages can get distributed across, like we have already covered in the load balancing session, how this can help you in balancing the load also. So these are the things, example technologies. These are the example technologies. RabbitMQ. So I have worked on Kafka and SQS, not much with RabbitMQ. So these are the things, the real world tools and technologies. Coming to publisher subscriber, or in short, we call the pub sub model.
Now we will talk about the pub sub or the publisher subscriber model. Now this is something which you have seen it around you. Like right now, even you are part of it. You are the subscribers of this YouTube channel. So if you pause for a minute and think about it, you will get the answer. What is this pub sub? See, it is a messaging pattern where the publishers, now there is a many, like one is to many concept. So publishers will send messages to a central topic or channel, and the subscribers will receive messages from that topic and they will get it. So they're decoupled and they do not need to know about each other. So I have my YouTube channel. So Varsha is the publisher. So Varsha's channel is the publisher. My YouTube is, you can think of it like the message broker or the topic. This is the medium. And you guys are the subscribers. So whenever I'm publishing a video, YouTube is sending you the notification that Varsha has published a video. This is a very simple real world example of a pub sub model, right? So this is what this model is about in very general and simple terms. What are the components? We have publishers and subscribers, and the middleman is the topic of the channel. So this topic can be something which is going to categorically group your messages that you want to send it. You will send it to one topic. If you have order related things, you'll send it to order topic. Let's say if you have payment related stuff, you want to send it to different topics. So it is going to like a bucket. It is going to categorically group the messages and the payload and keep it and route it accordingly. So publishers will send the messages, subscribers will receive the messages from the topic. So they are on the receiver and the subscribers, and here is the publisher, and this is the medium. It's a very simple way how it works. So continuing with the characteristics, like what does pub sub include? So firstly, we understand it is a many-to-many communication. It can be one publisher sending to many subscribers. It can be multiple publishers, like we have newsletters, even YouTube channels, right? You have multiple YouTube channels that you guys have subscribed to. There's multiple YouTube channels that you guys have subscribed to. So even newspapers, right? Nowadays it has converted into digital newsletters. So there are multiple things that you guys subscribe to, which means there are multiple publishers and there are multiple subscribers. So whoever have subscribed, they will get it. So they'll send messages to the topic. The multiple subscribers will receive it. Again, the decoupling thing. Now broadcasting. This is also a way to broadcast the message that you want to the subscribers who have subscribed to your topic. Even WhatsApp has this broadcast message. Event-driven architecture. If some event has occurred and in response to that, you want your receiver end to react. So this is what is made possible using this particular messaging pattern. So event-driven architecture's main underlying principle is the pub sub system itself. Again, scalability, like we have seen in the message queue, as and when your user base grows, your new subscribers get added, the bigger it gets. And as and when your new subscribers added, it gets more and more scalable, and that doesn't really affect the publishers. Use cases, real-time updates. So you want the real-time updates to happen. For example, we want our news that we get in the morning from InShorts, the stock price updates, sports score. So there are multiple users who are receiving the updates at the same time. They're receiving it real time. So what is it that is making it possible? This PubSub system is making it possible. Again, event notification, like I said, any kind of event reaction, event driven architecture, how it works. They react to the same events, like user sign up notifications, which is sent to billing, email, and logging services. So one sign up has occurred, and that has caused a string of reactions, like a string of different other services get invoked because of that. How is it? Because they have subscribed to that sign up notification topic. Log aggregation, also collecting logs from different services whenever you want to do. What is the underlying system that is making it possible? Publisher, subscribe. Okay. Benefits, again, no point in repeating the same. Decoupling, scalability, flexibility, as you can see. Fan out is a term which you have to understand. Whenever fan out is being mentioned, you have to understand PubSub is being talked about. In fan out, specifically, there is one publisher which is sending a message to multiple subscribers. So that is the fan out pattern. Again, Amazon, like AWS has this SNS. Kafka also works in the same way. We have other Google Cloud, other vendors also providing the PubSub model. I also want to cover a couple of additional points that you should be knowing with regard to this topic. One is the DL queue or the dead letter queue. So whenever your messages, already you have 14-day period, it is having a retention of 14-day, that is fine. But sometimes the messages cannot get processed by your downstream. So in that case, where do we store it? We cannot discard the message also, because we may need it sometimes. So some API issue has occurred and your downstream could not process it. So in those cases, those messages which could not get processed, error timeout, they are sent to a special queue, which is called DL queue. So this is one thing which you should be knowing. Next is priority queue. We also have this in DSA also, that where the items or the payload in the queue have a certain priority, so that high priority messages should be processed before. Exactly once delivery. This is also one term which you have to understand, that whenever there's a requirement that there should be only exactly once delivery, which means there should not be any duplication. So the message is delivered and processed exactly once. You do not want multiple orders to get processed. And that is what is also hinting about the idempotency. Your system should be idempotent, which means if there is repeated delivery, why will you waste your resources downstream to process the same thing? There should be a mechanism where a very simple check can be done if this ID is already processed. If this is already processed, you're not going to reprocess it. Otherwise, if you do not have that check, you're going to repeatedly process the same order and cause a lot of resource wastage. So repeated delivery of the same messages should be handled without any adverse effect. This is crucial for consistency and reliability, right? Cool. So these are some of the points which we had to discuss on this regard. So with that, we are wrapping up this entire topic of async message queues, like asynchronous communication, message queues, PubSub, and hope you guys have got some value out of it and will help you understand these terms whenever you come across anything on this in system design. Thank you so much for watching the video, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Most importantly, leave your questions in the comment if you have any, and don't forget to share this video, like this video, if you have got some value out of it. Thank you again for watching this. See you in the next video.